Starting my Fire Emblem Fates Hard Classic No Royals run, I customized a female Corrin to my liking and named her Man. I gave her plus skill minus luck and mage as a talent for a build I have planned. We've decided to side with our supposed blood related family that we met the other day because Corrin realizes immediately that Garon is evil, and Xander is angry about it. This map has a defeat the boss objective, and the boss, Xander, is over here next to Ryoma. Ryoma normally takes him out most of the time, but unfortunately the entire challenge is using none of the royal family. Only having Kaze, Rinka, and Jacob to work with won't be enough. Like usual, I fail several times before I phase in just about every royal except for Ryoma and clear the map with Takumi. However, while the royals just retreat no matter what difficulty you choose, I did not read Kaze's dialogue and did not realize he was dead due to my inexperience with classic mode before this challenge. This is not acceptable, so I replay the map like you're supposed to. I also purchased the generic Troubadour trim. I only had Jacob as an available healer and needed another one, but she ended up not really being used all that much later in the game. In Chapter 7, we arrive at Fort Jinya to help Sakura, who's tending to the wounded, where we also meet her retainer Hana, who isn't all that useful, and Tsubaki, who's kinda okay sometimes I guess. Apparently, we're already surrounded by Nohrian soldiers and have to fight. At the start of their map, their commander claims to know Corrin, but she doesn't recognize him at all due to self-insert convenient circumstances. This map is pretty simple, with a few chests around that I have Kaze loot with his lock touch skill. Or I would the second one, but I was moving too slow and an outlaw got to it and escaped first. Although I don't get access to the healing tiles due to them being locked behind the Dragon Vein activation, I had no problems completing this map. I sit at the first choke point for a while with Rinka, having the generic healer and Jacob earn XP through healing her, and easily dispatch the remaining enemies with my army. Silas tells us to kill him, and we hesitate because he was hesitating in battle, but doesn't hesitate to tell us that we were childhood best friends, and he snuck Corrin out once and almost got executed for it. Somehow that rings a bell for Corrin. She invites him to join the Hoshidan army. However, a wounded Orochi as well as Saizo appear to tell us that Ryoma and Takumi have gone missing while heading to Izumo, and to join them in their search for them. Sakura also wants to come with, which Corrin and Kaze both object to. But I must agree, I don't think Sakura is going to participate in any battles. Saizo is very suspicious over recruiting a potential Nohrian spy into her party, and he does kinda have a point, but since Silas will just die otherwise and it's ultimately Corrin's call, Saizo joins but expresses that he will be cautious. In Chapter 8, we start by walking up the Eternal Stairway, where we are met with random Faceless. After taking them out, it turns out they are actually not Faceless, they're people from the Wind Tribe that Iago had disguised as Faceless to give Corrin problems. We get ready to tell the Wind Tribe village about what we've done, and they're not really having it, and to speak to Fuga, we have to fight. In this map, we have Hinoka and her retainers as recruitable green units to the left, with Setsuna, who kinda sucks, and Izama, who from my experience is actually pretty good to have, and more helpful as I start off with one less good healer than normal. This is also a desert map, meaning most units are slowed in movement, while mages and healers can traverse normally. Due to poor placement of Tsubaki, however, I needed to replay the map. Other than that, dispatching the enemies is relatively easy, and I take Fuga out to clear the map. Afterwards, Fuga praises Corrin's skills and claims he was testing that she really is the right person to wield the Yato, aka the Seal of Flames, aka the Fire Emblem, and mentions he was bros with Sumeragi. Before continuing our search, he asks if he can drop his kid off with us.
I'm not a child, I'm a grown man.
In Chapter 9, we've made our way to Izumo. Meeting an Izumite, we ask him if they'd heard of a nearby battle, where he however claims there was no battle. Meeting the Archduke, he too claims the same thing. Must have been the wind. He takes Corrin and Sakura to the spa to relax with some sharp-looking devices, and who could have known it's not Izana, it's an imposter! Hinoka and Azura were sus of him enough to follow along and pretend to be Nohrian soldiers in order to save us. Like most maps, this has a route objective, which is simple enough, but not having a designated tank made the beginning part of it a little hard, being trapped inside without an opening and multiple mages and outlaws around. The next turn, Takumi's retainers join in as green units, Hinata being about as useful as Hana in my experience, and Oboro, who I initially didn't think all so much of, yet winds up pretty useful. Coming back to the room situation, the entrance gets crowded pretty easily due to my more defensive playstyle, but most being one range and Kaze not finishing them off at once keeps them safe enough for them to go attack Oboro, and make next player phase easier to handle. After the map, Zola attempts to escape but runs into Leo and tends to execute him. Corrin convinces him not to and takes Zola along instead. The real Izana being freed makes Azura and Hinoka realize that Zola's impression was actually pretty correct, though this Izana does tell that he heard of some battle nearby. When asking about Takumi and Ryoma, I said, "Oh yeah, they went close to the bottomless canyon. Maybe they fell in. Lol." Afterwards, he asks some gods about our fortune, but just gives us some song lyrics, and we're back on our way to go find Takumi and Ryoma. Oh yeah, and Azura comes up to us talking about that she knows the song, but then says, "Never mind." Sure wonder what that's about. Shortly after, I decide to do Paralogue 1 to unlock this game's training unit, Mozu, whose mother and entire rest of village are all tragically massacred by Faceless. Unlike in the Donald Paralogue in Awakening, all you have to do is just talk to Mozu before the Faceless start moving toward her to have her recruited. This map is mostly free XP. Oh yeah, and Mozu's okay. Just a bit more of assistance in Conquest, but her lower defenses has usually warded me off of using her. After the map, we just ask her, since, hey, you have nothing left, wanna come fight in the war? And she says, yeah, okay. Oh, by the way, when trying to do those hangout events, the game would just crash. Starting chapter 10, we walk into Mokushujin territory, being first jump scared by Zola, who wants to seek amnesty, and Mokushujin ninjas, which we become surrounded by. Kotaro, the Mokushu daimyo, affirms Zola's statement over that Mokushu has allied with Nohr to be granted more land in the war. The map is full of ninjas, tempting me to nickname it Minor Ninja Hell, and Takumi joins as an enemy unit and starts attacking people. Takumi is pretty good in this map, having a bow that allows him to ignore terrain effects, weapon triangle advantage against ninjas, as well as wielding a physical weapon with higher hit rates. None of that matters though, because we can't use them, so I just kill them. Otherwise, most of the strategy for the map was tanking and sealing defense with Oboro, as ninjas do no damage to her with the guard Naginata, with Kaze, Saizo, and sometimes miscellaneous other units working on taking the enemies out. However, their army has a healer, so I ended up sitting around the starting area for kinda a long time because I couldn't finish them all off and they kept running back to the healer. Oh yeah, and there's a chest here that I missed out on because I forgot I needed to deploy a flyer to get there. Oops. After having defeated Kotaro, Takumi is still acting weird, so Azura sings her magic song and he goes back to normal. He tells us Ryoma is still missing and that he actually fell down the bottomless canyon, but still is somehow alive, not even knowing how he returned. This may make you think that maybe we'll see Gunter again. No. Takumi is ashamed at having attacked his own army, but Korin just says, yeah, whatever, we gotta get on our way now. Azura also starts coughing, which is completely random and has no relevance to anything at all, definitely. Kaze locates Kagero in the cells beneath Mokushu, a ninja typically favored due to her large utility, who also informs us that Ryoma was on his way to Chev, another independent territory. Kagero as a unit is pretty neat, and a part of a build plan I had. Moving on to chapter 11, we start off on a boat. Takumi suggesting there may be a spy among us, considering we have Zola. But Korin says, nah, surely he wouldn't betray us. Takumi also makes sure we're aware of how distrusting he is by not allowing Zola to speak his name. Suddenly though, the boat shakes and some weird purple ghosts hop on out from the ocean. This map is normally not all too difficult, due to the dragon veins located around that slow all flyers, which is exactly why it's hard with my challenge restrictions. Being assaulted from both above and below with flyers and reinforcements, and nearby obstacles that flyers can just fly past makes it almost impossible to clear without losing some of my units. Reina the Kinshi Knight joins this chapter, but the winning strategy always involved her taking out as many flyers below as she could before she dies. Silas also ended up dying this chapter, but honestly it wasn't useful enough to bother restarting. So with 2 losses, I clear the map. Afterward, a purple ghost ambushes Takumi, and Zola jumps in front of him to take the hit to make sure Takumi feels really bad for not allowing him to speak his name. Korin praises Zola for his courageous and selfless act, and the guilting actually worked on Takumi too, who apologizes for not letting Zola address him by name. Chapter 12 starts with us passing through Circensia, Nestra, where a furry who will soon join our army asks us to help a random dancer he met who needs to go visit her frail mother but is scheduled at the opera for King Garon. Azura suggests having Zola disguise her as Layla in a plot to capture King Garon. Azura begins performing her copyright claim song, seemingly affecting King Garon's YouTube channel greatly. However, as it turns out, King Garon's YouTube channel remained unaffected, as he does not even have enough subscribers to earn revenue to begin with, and Zola was the super obvious imposter and everything. He pleads for his life as a part of a deal, but for some reason also asks to pardon Korin's life. It's okay then. Doesn't matter because Garon takes him out then and there anyway. The objective here for once is actually something other than route, being having Korin escape, which is pretty easy if you just deploy a flyer. In turn 1, they send in Xander and his retainers at the opposite side of the map to have a short conversation with Korin. That you'd point your sword at your own father. Let's settle this here and now. What? Xander comes to jump scare Korin after she's escaped. However, Elise stands in his way to prevent him from hurting her. Later, Korin finds Azura whimpering in pain, but claims it's no big deal and brushes it off by saying we should get going already. Finally, in chapter 13, we have made it to Chev. However, someone is apparently on our tracks. It's our stepsister Camilla, mainly known for her big heart for Korin, and what's in front of it. She's here to put Korin down because of how much she loves her, and because she's jealous of that Korin has a new family, even though she's also happy for her because she wanted wanted her to be loved, and despite loving Corin so much, is incredibly fine with taking her out. Even for royals, it would seem therapy is too scarce of a resource in Nohr. I'm a bit more challenged in this map compared to others so far, as despite having some available choke points, there's still a lot of enemies, notably flyers and cavaliers already heading for my group. Oboro, being a very sturdy tank, helps out at one of the choke points, while Jacob goes to a nearby house. Once enough immediate enemies are taken care of, Oboro moves forward to visit another house. With the lower map enemies taken out, I start baiting out Camilla in a one-on-one with Oboro, taking a defensive formation beforehand, as although Baruka and other flyers can be taken out no problem, baiting Camilla out causes the upper map enemies to start moving. Enemy generals prove a little bit scary, but with tank Oboro at the right choke point and Orochi with backpack Corin barely scraping by, I managed to avoid any losses as I finished the map. With Camilla defeated, Corin refuses to end her and instead informs Camilla that Garon might be evil and that Corin was a part of a mission he said where she would likely have died. Suddenly, however, Leo shows up in an effort to stop Corin's anti-Nohr brainwashing on Camilla. But as he's about to attack, a mystery green general voiced by Matt Mercer shows up with a Nohrian resistance army and forces their retreat. The green general reclasses back to Swordmaster, revealing he is actually Ryoma. Chapter 14 starts with some yapping in the Chev undergrounds, Scarlet also joining our party, when suddenly we hear an explosion. Somehow the Nohrians know of our location, so naturally Azura suggests there's still a traitor despite Zola already having been executed. Ryoma decides we take a secret path right into Nohr, a swift counterattack likely being the last thing they'd expect. In this battle, the overall brute forcing gets real as I rely on her to tank just about the entire time. Meanwhile, the entire rest of the army sits back and takes out a few of the other enemies. After a while, the inside of the building's enemies spawn, making it a bit more annoying to try to get Oboro inside. All she needs is just some faraway support and she can take out the whole Nohrian army. After defeating the boss, rest in a nearby forest is suggested as it's getting dark. Corin yet again spots Azura outside in the dark, whimpering, follows her and asks her about that song she keeps singing, that Izana knew the lyrics to and broke Takumi out of his curse, but like usual is turned down by Azura, no matter how much she says she can tell her. Azura's pain, however, starts to flare up again. Azura tells her that it's a result of a curse, that if she sings that specific song while utilizing her pendant that we don't really get any background lore of, she can generate a special power, something akin to exorcising demons. Chapter 15 starts with Kaze and Corin pondering how to get into the Nohrian castle with so many guards protecting it, and Ryoma suggests the only unprotected road, Mount Garu, likely unguarded to push our army there. While climbing we encounter Wolfskin that assume we're here to hunt them, but manage to convince them we wish them no harm and just want to pass through. Until magic strikes one of them down, making them all turn on us. This map is one of the less notable ones, with the only somewhat scary enemies being a couple of Wolfskin and Wolfsigners with equipped skills, and it's handled mainly with tank Oboro while my other units safely take out the Wolfskin close by. Concluding the map, Corin expresses remorse for the Wolfskin massacre. It is however cut short, as a landslide has her fall off the cliff, hanging only onto Kaze. Corin says he has to let her go, or else we'll both fall, but then he spots some weird magic crystal and hits it with his shuriken, because it for some reason explodes. If you're wondering why we're having this weirdly pointless moment right now, it's because Kaze will die here if you don't have an A support or higher with him by chapter 15. In the event that you don't have an A support with Kaze, the mystery crystal of convenient explosions also just won't exist. Okay, I guess. I don't know which scenario is more of a nothing burger, the one where Kaze dies or the one where he doesn't. After chapter 15, I do the Dwyer paralogue, son of Jacob and Hana. While looking for his son in the Deep Realms, Jacob finds out he's really lazy and sits back to heal instead of being hardworking like his father. Purple ghosts come to crash the party. This paralogue is known for being pretty easy to beat quick, since it's a defeat the boss objective. All you really need to do is open the door to the left. Afterwards, all of his servants had just left. Dwyer wants to join the party. Jacob says no, then says okay fine after Dwyer takes an enemy out. This ended up being a kind of pointless recruit. Dwyer has a castle-only personal skill and starts as a troubadour. He ends up doing just as little in my army as he did in his mansion. Chapter 16 begins with Iago reporting to Garon, suggesting he was behind the explosion in the previous chapter. Cutting back to Corin's army's point of view, we've made it to Nohr, but Takumi suddenly falls ill with a rare fever caught by the Wolfskin. It is life-threatening, and only specific herbs that Ryoma notes can be found in Palace Makarat's apothecary can cure him. So of course that's where we're headed. The person spotting us as intruders just so happens to be Flora, one of our maids and Felicia's sister. She's all friendly, will get us the medicine! Except Iago's here, so time to fight. You know the drill. Oboro charges in and the rest take out the rest. There's chest in here though, that's fun. After the battle we ask Iago who told him that we're here, but all he tells us just suggests that there may still be a traitor. Among Us. With Iago gone, Flora can now go get the herbs and tend to Takumi with them, and they talk about heading to their home, the Ice Tribe village. Takumi starts sleep talking some weird things. I wonder what that's about. Chapter 17 has us walking to the Ice Tribe village. Corin's still shaken up by Iago's words. Ryoma talks about it with her that her gut feeling in people is a weakness and a strength, that she has keen intuition and charisma. Same girl who was locked up in a fortress her whole life, by the way. Either way, Flora's led us to the Ice Tribe village, and while waiting for a warm welcome, she returns with the army and claims Corin cannot live and that it's for betraying Nohr. This chapter features villages like some others have, however unlike usual. Instead of granting you a reward, 4 of them spawn in reinforcements instead. One of them grants you 10,000 gold though, even though that's not all that game changing in Birthright. Concluding the map, Corin asks Flora what Garon has over her, with her confessing to that she was threatened with her entire village and its people to be destroyed if she didn't follow orders to take out Corin and Felicia. Despite being so severely pressured as she herself would be killed if she didn't make the choice within 30 seconds and that she's clearly being forgiven and begged to join Corin's army, the guilt is too much for her to bear and she sets herself on fire with magic that Felicia's story-only Icewind magic cannot put out. Chapter 18 has us walking through the woods of the Forlorn, and Felicia says she knows this area well from camping with Flora and then starts sobbing. Why is she acting like someone just died? Suddenly we are surrounded by Faceless. Also, this chapter is called Leo. You will never guess who we meet. This is another one of the few non-route maps, being a defeat the boss objective, though I still end up taking all enemies out to comfortably deal with Niles and Odin in order to gain all drops. After the battle, Corin says Garon is causing the war and has fooled them all, but Leo still wants to call Corin naive and all that. Leo threatens that he could cast a spell any moment, and Corin just says, okay, well haven't you done it yet then? And exposes him for being good and kind-hearted. Anyway, Azura talks some more and reveals she was originally a Nohrian princess, but still not related to Leo, but still keeping her secrets. Leo remarks that Xander has become strong. He also suggests to go to Nohr since Xander went there once and became strong. Its location would mean heading pretty far back. Leo says, oh no, I got you covered, here's a warp book. In chapter 19, we've teleported to Nohr and start looking for the Rainbow Sage. We ask this old guy about the Rainbow Sage and he says almost no one has met the Rainbow Sage and lived. The only ones being Sumeragi, a young King Garon, Xander, and some unknown knight. Anyway, to meet him, we're told to walk up Mount Suggest to the Sevenfold Sanctuary. To begin with, this map has some issues with visual bugs and some textures, even changing sometimes when reloading the chapter. Either way, here we battle illusions, where it has a somewhat interesting gimmick in that the enemies to the right have ridiculous defense, yet no resistance, and vice versa on the other side. Because they're illusions, you can't capture them, which is unfortunate because it would be pretty funny to have a general with 0 defense. After finishing the battle, we open the door to meet the Rainbow Sage. Yeah, it's the old guy from the start of the chapter. When asking him to grant us power, he says no, because it was about the journey, not the destination. Then he asks to see the Yato and Fujin Yumi, holding them up to each other to turn the Yato into the noble Yato, blessing us with power in the end anyway. Chapter 20 starts back in Nohr, where we've made our way to Fort Dragonfall. The idea being to get into the Nohrian castle as the cramped space would not allow for a total army surround. Getting inside, we realize it's suspicious there's not any soldiers here at all, and the exit is gone now. And once you know, it's Iago, and he's reviving the dragon with us still inside. He realizes we still need a battle for this chapter though, and is kind enough to spawn in some Faceless. This is a pretty unnotable map. There's endlessly spawning Faceless, some chests around and acid spaces, but they're not much of concern to Oboro. After defeating the boss, Azura has finally managed to sing her 1,000,001 cure song to weaken the dragon enough to slash through it and halt the revival. Azura, however, sustains heavy damage, almost disintegrating this time, revealing to Corin she had lied about it not being able to take her life, as she knew Corin would just worry, but informs her that it's impossible to go without it. Still, she intends to live a peaceful life, and says she's not lying when she says she won't disappear. After chapter 20, I do a couple paralogs. First starting with Kaldori, daughter of Tsubaki and Felicia. Just like her father, she's got that whole thing with being perfect and wants to help in the war. It's actually a lot more challenging of a map than many others in Birthright, honestly. The scariest being the sorcerers scattered all around. It took some resets, but I did manage to complete it without casualties. Next paralog recruit is the most important, Rajat, daughter of Hayato and Kagero. She has inherited counter from her father and lethality from her mother, and was from the beginning intended to be a carry. Corin has a boon in skill, is going to reclass to a class that grants the maximum stat boost to skill, and S support Rajat and take over as her backpack. With the S support, Rajat will also use a partner seal to gain access to the class I set her to have a talent for. Along with having wide access to a variety of skills through her allies, Rajat also possesses a neat personal skill for tough enemies, being Vendetta, causing her to do extra damage to them if she's engaged in combat with them before doing the same map. Some criticisms with my strategy here to be had though, is that certain skills can be so overkill they become a little useless or even detrimental in most scenarios, like Lethality and Counter, both which can prevent strategies where enemies she's left alive can block hits, putting her in danger as she's not got tank defenses. Oh yeah, by the way, in this map she summons a bunch of faceless we have to take out, and Corrin saves her from one of them after the map, which makes her obsessed with Corrin. Soon after, I get an S support between Rajat and Corrin, where Rajat considers not stalking her anymore, but Corrin says that she actually wants her around and they get married. After Corrin S supports a character, you get to see a special little cutscene with a 3D model where they say something about loving you. I didn't know she spoke French. Third paralogue I do is Mitama's paralogue, daughter of Izama and Rinka. Her deep realm is overrun with enemies, but Izama simply does not guff. Like Kaldori's paralogue, the enemies are much more challenging than regular chapters, and caused me a few resets. You have to get to the house in the middle of the map before certain roaming enemies, and choose to interact with it 3 times with Izama before they can destroy the house to recruit her. Mitama has also inherited counter magic from her father, and counter from her mother. This was the run where I finally understood how useless it honestly is despite being a level 5 advanced class skill, even though enemies with it absolutely suck to encounter. Fourth paralogue recruit is Selkie, another kitsune like her father Kaden, her mother being Setsuna. Selkie is playful and encounters kitsune hunters, thinking they want to play. For a while, Selkie is too busy taking snipers out, so as long as you can get to her before other enemies can get in range, she can be spoken to and recruited easily. Fifth and almost last recruit is Sophie, daughter of Silas and Opero. I was kinda surprised that her paralogue stayed up despite Silas being dead, but I suppose it's because for the sake of the story, Silas isn't actually dead, he just can't fall here in chapter 11 and had to retreat. Either way, this paralogue is a defeat the boss one and fairly simple, but you can try to go for bonus rewards if you keep the villagers present in this map alive. However, I wonder if this is truly morally defendable when the one thing they focus on doing the entire time is walking right into enemy range. And remember, they're green, so I can't block them from moving anywhere unless I have enough characters that there is no way to progress to the enemy, or if I waste a bunch of gold to buy multiple sets of rescue staves and deploy enough staff users for it. Anyway, Rajat defeated the boss, which ended the map before the villagers could get themselves killed. Before getting started with the next chapter, I tried to do the Asugi paralogue, son of Saizo and Orochi, but looks like you can't even exit the room without using a dragon vein. The page I checked for this paralogue said you can break the walls, but I assume they didn't take into account that anyone would ever bother playing the game the way I am right now. Either way, chapter 21 starts with Elise being caught eavesdropping by Xander, and cries over her family being in shambles. Back to Corrin's army's point of view, we're headed to Demon's Falls, with a lake that's on fire. The gimmick of this map is that there are 2 dragon veins, one that will create a bridge to the next area, and one that will cause the entire area we're currently on to be hazardous. This can fortunately be skipped with flyers, and as I found out, both the effects of the dragon veins happen once you fly someone to the next area. Next enemy turns, there will be reinforcement Stormborn, an enemy that has pretty large range, but it's not too big of an issue. After the battle, a secret passageway opens up that leads directly into the capital of Nohr. Takumi mentions that he's still suspicious about there being a spy in the group, and that it's probably the reason the Rainbow Sage didn't tell us about this. In chapter 22, we are now in Windmire, where there aren't many people to be seen. It's explained to Ryoma that Nohrians do not have access to many resources, and he thinks maybe Hoshida could consider sharing. Silas, hearing this, says he's prepared to give up his own life to fight for him. I don't know about you, but I have a sneaking suspicion that won't get to happen. Some thief named Shura interrupts this moment, however, but they don't really sound all that surprised by this.
Oh.
Not again.
This is kind of a filler route map. No new strategies. There's Ballistae and magic orbs here though, I suppose. We interrogate the thief after the battle, Ryoma revealing his identity, which makes the thief open up about his backstory, that he's from Koga, a kingdom that bordered Mokushu before Mokushu burned it to the ground, and wasn't allowed entry into Hoshida as a refugee, so he wound up in Nohr, becoming a thief. Ryoma notices he has a name and a unique portrait and asks him to join the army. It's also revealed here that Shura was one of the people who had something to do with the kidnapping of Azura. Shura leads us to Nohr's underground, where we meet none other than Elise herself. She explains that the family situation is sad and that's why she's here, and also that both she and Xander have noticed that Garon might be evil now. It was said to be starting to go downhill after Queen Arate died. Speaking of Queen Arate, she sure looks a lot like Azura, and likes to sing just like Azura too. After chapter 22, I recruit the last paralogue unit, being Midori, daughter of Kaze and Mozu. She's looking for some special herbs when they get stolen by a thief named Candace. And who's Candace, you might ask? Well, I don't know. You either way have to catch up to her and defeat her to end the map. Another simple paralogue since you just need to fly over the forest. When you beat her, you actually get the stat booster. She asks who I am, and while I won't tell her that, I can tell you I'll be dragging these herbs across my stats. This has been a D's Nuts joke by a wheat salesman. Please laugh. In chapter 23, Elise accompanies us through tunnels, taking a neutral stance to Corin as she just wants to end the war. Elise's retainers who have been stalking us seem to have gotten the incorrect impression about what's going on, and notify Camilla, who arrives shortly after. She's back down the Alt-Norian pipeline, so now we have to fight again. In this map, Camilla is at the top left with 3 dragon veins she can activate once per turn that each do damage to my units as well as destroy some obstacles in that specific section. Like Ballistae and Magic Orbs, it doesn't do lethal damage but does do a fixed 10 damage, which can make things pretty worrying over time. It can be avoided by cramming into the in-betweens of the sections, but not everyone can fit inside one, and enemy reinforcements make it too hard to reliably block off the ends. Camilla will target the column with the most allies inside, which can be used to bait her into targeting groups with healers ready. Effie and Arthur can be made into green units, but neither do all that much to help. After the battle, we tell Camilla we're actually going to attempt to persuade Xander and Corin, and that her happy family fantasy can come true, and she faints as an excuse to not come with us. Her retainers respect Camilla's approval and urge us to get going. In chapter 24, we're still making our way to the throne room until we get to the end and realize this isn't the throne room, it's Nohr's most elite soldiers' training ground. Hans is their commander, and we're noticed almost immediately. The enemies start attacking my very under-leveled units because they are royals, yet still die on a counterattack. Impressive from Corin's end, considering she's got nothing in her inventory. As she's about to get killed by Hans, Lilith, our magical fishbird dragon, jumps out to take the hit. Also, it would seem no one in Nohr really knows their animals. Here, the enemy's ranges are incredibly large, making this one of the slightly trickier Birthright maps. Sorcerers are always scary, even with higher resistance units, and there are annoying flying reinforcements. My Kinshi Knights do help out with that though. While barely hanging on, soloing the entire upper map, Rajat does make it to Hans and takes him out with quite low risk. After having avenged Gunter, the remaining soldiers surrender, but Lilith is still critically injured. Neither Elise nor Sakura Staves can save her. Lilith transforms to human again, as it would seem the never lore relevant astral dragon Moro pities her. She speaks her final words and then dies.
What am I fighting for?
In chapter 25, we're almost at the throne room when, like usual, Yago's here yet again. He makes Takumi hold on to Azura, revealing he was the traitor giving the Nohrian army info all along. Corin is stabbed in the back yet again. Except also kinda not, because he's like mega possessed. Yago says, actually, the spell wouldn't work if he had 0 dissatisfactions, which... where are you going to meet a person with no dissatisfactions at all? Corin's belief in Takumi stuns him for long enough that Azura is able to sing her magic cure song, and Takumi wakes up for good. Like the previous one, this map is also a little more intimidating than Birthright typically offers. This time the reinforcements from the sides are a bit of a bigger problem than before, with there being so many cavalry ones. There's 2 chests on each side of the map. However, there's an annoying strategist with entrap staffs that take you from the chest room and teleport you directly into a big scary group of enemies for most of my units. Fortunately, they can be distracted with the opportunity to attack and can be baited out pretty easily. The whole group can be pretty scary to engage, but one of the chests contained the water wheel, which Oboro appreciates greatly. Yago himself can also be scary due to having vengeance and already high magic, but Rajat takes him out at once with a Rend Heaven crit. Yago does a 180 after being bested and pleads for his life, but Leo is here to take him out for real this time, so Corin's pure morality remains unaffected. He says he still won't help any more than he has despite he won't stop you, so he too doesn't get in the way of an upcoming moment in the next chapter. Leo warns of Xander and Garon's strength, and we're on our way. Chapter 26 starts with Xander's point of view, informing his retainers this battle is between him and Corin only, and that they are to stay where they are. Back to Corin's POV, and we're stopped by Xander himself because we are still not yet at the throne room. It's time for that one-on-one, and Elise is still distraught at not being able to convince Xander to stop. Corin gets really beat up, but still asks Xander to use his great power for justice, but he says justice just, isn't real. Okay then.
I shall defend my homeland!
Elise bravely sacrifices herself in an attempt to end all this fighting, using her final moments to convince Xander to tread the path of peace. And says, nah, screw that, let's continue.
Draw your sword!
I'm afraid I can't do that. No, really, Xander, I'm a spearmaster. Xander's retainers also disobeyed his command and brought back up anyway. This map is, actually, well, I gotta check Fire Emblem Heroes. Just hold on.
Fire Emblem Heroes!
They still haven't fixed the crashing. I'm gonna try again.
Fire Emblem Heroes!
Because I really wanted a Choose Your Legends as... Okay, I'm trying again.
Fire Emblem Heroes.
Yes. I would really like Choose Your Legends Azura. Finally! Actually loaded in. Alright. Just had to lower like the audio quality and stuff. Let's get to summoning. Oh, the map is over. Xander is bested because he let Corin win, because he felt defeated at killing Elise, because he loves his family, but loves Nohr and the war more apparently. Oh, also, he hints that he actually knows that there's something wrong with Garon, even though he still defended him and let Corin win instead of just thinking for a couple more seconds that maybe he should consider Elise's final wish. Story Xander is something else. In chapter 27, we are finally confronting King Garon. At hearing that Xander and Elise have passed, he refers to them as pawns, making Corin's resolution even clearer. Corin's attacks simply bounce off of Garon's armor, and when Azura gets ready to sing her special song, he captures her. Unsure what to do about their lack of power, Ryoma's Raijinto glows like the Fujin Yumi once did, powering up the Noble Yato into the Blazing Yato, which for this run does not matter in the slightest. As per usual, this map strategy consists of sending Rajat in as many enemies' ranges as possible, while the rest take out the rest. After having taken nearly all enemies out, I Hexing Rada Garon, attack with Rajat, then deal the finishing blow with Midori. We declare our victory over King Garon, but nope, he's still alive and in typical Fire Emblem fashion turns into a dragon. He slaps the Blazing Yato into pieces, then slaps Ryoma and Takumi. Afterward, Corin tries to dual guard them for the second hit, but forgot it's not 2016 anymore, and T-posing has lost all its ancestral power. Corin dies, the end. No, actually, she wakes up around Lilith, Flora, Xander, and Elise, and considers just staying here forever until they make her jog her memory enough to remember that she was at the throne room fighting Garon. She can choose to stay here forever or go back. Everyone deployed in the battle gives some encouraging words to Corin to wake up, and she says her goodbyes to her late loved ones in the places they passed on. She reconjures the Blazing Yato somehow and wakes up. In the very last battle, there will be infinite reinforcements, which the rest of the army is to sort out and distract while Rajat focuses on King Garon. My risky unit positioning does end up with the passing of Hayato. I mean, kinda, he still says he just can't fall here. Also, there is a throne at the top that can heal, normally for King Garon to retreat to, but this 1 HP general decided he should sit there instead, which was kind of funny to me. Next to fall is Kagero, who canonically does actually die, followed by Izama, who like Hayato says he can't fall here, and the last casualty, Felicia, who also can't fall here. Garon decides to ignore Rajat and moves downward, which scares me a tiny bit, but I block off the choke point with Oboro, keeping him cornered until Rajat deals the finishing blow.
I'm with you. I want your soul for a trophy.
In his last moments, Garon reverts back to his human self, talking about how his body and his mind were destroyed, that ever since a specific moment he became something, then disintegrates. However, turning to face Azura, she collapses and confesses she can't keep her promise. Using her song as much as she has to weaken Garon was too much this time, and like him, she disintegrates into water and disappears entirely. Back to Hoshido! Ryoma's coronation is held, where he vows a peaceful future of both Hoshido and Nohr, with even the 2 remaining Nohrian siblings present, revealing Leo is to take the throne. Despite Camilla being next in line, she begged Leo to take the throne. However, there has not been released a King Leo alt in Fire Emblem Heroes yet, but there has been released a Queen Camilla alt. A celebratory Hoshidan festival is held, and taking a break, Corin takes a walk outside the same place she first met Azura. Suddenly she hears her singing, and even sees her, and looks at the lake as she asks, but then disappears again. In the ending cutscene, Mikoto is told that the war is over, and she glances over all her children with approval over their conduct, as sitting back and letting the commoners do all the hard work is how real nation leaders proceed with warfare. Concluding this Fire Emblem Fates Birthright playthrough, we found out that majority of the game can be completed without ever using the royal family, with some technical exceptions such as the prologue in Chapter 1. Chapters 5 and 6 could also be possible, but only with flawless strategy and unrealistic luck. Other than that, completely possible, and despite this being my first experience with Classic Mode, I probably should have played on Lunatic 2 even though this run has to be without Ryoma. Something I wound up learning from this experience is that I'm messing around a bit much with recruiting child units, which in the Conquest run I get hit with pretty soon that I can't focus on that too much. The total reset count for this run ended up at 34, with 18 of those being from the main chapters. A total of 26 resets, including paralogs if you don't count skirmishes. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and especially if you want to see more. See you next time.